friends, in the last session we saw what do we mean by ambiguous grammar and unambiguous grammar. Now in this session we will be looking at what do we mean by ambiguous languages, or they are also called as inherently ambiguous languages. So the starting point of the discussion will be the fact that a language can be represented by different grammars. Same language can be represented by different grammars. Let's see an example. Consider a language L equal to epsilon comma A comma B. Okay, it's a simple language, finite language consisting of only 3 strings, one epsilon, A and B. Let's write down certain grammar for this particular language. One grammar will be S produces epsilon or A or B. Say call this grammar as G1, and another grammar that we can write down will be something like this. Say S produces epsilon or A or B, then A produces A or epsilon and B produces B or epsilon. You should appreciate the fact that these two grammars are different. They are not same, obviously they are different. And the language represented by both the grammars is L, that is either epsilon or A or B. Now this particular grammar is straightforward. You will start with the starting symbol S and you will replace S with either epsilon or A or B. So this grammar G1 directly generates the language L. However, if you observe grammar G2, what we have done here S will either directly produce epsilon, okay, or when you say S produces A, capital A, then that A can produce more number of A's, but after all every A will be finally replaced with epsilon. So whatever number of variable A you generate in the derivation, ultimately all the capital A will be replaced by epsilon and only terminal that will be left will be small a. Similarly here, whatever number of capital B you generate, ultimately you will be left with only small b, and that's why the language generated by this grammar can be called as L. Now see, as far as the second grammar is concerned, you can have multiple derivations for a given string. Let's say you want to derive A. So one of the derivation possible will be S produces A, okay, and then you can say you will replace this A with epsilon and then it will give you S produces A. Or what you can do, you can write down S produces A, small a, you can replace this A with the second production, twice A. So you can write down A, again you can say A, you can write it down any number of times you want. Ultimately, one by one each A will be replaced with epsilon, so you will get A, then A, and finally when you want to terminate, you will terminate only with A. Similarly, you can have multiple productions for B. So one of the productions for B will be like S produces capital B and then S produces B, or you can go for a more involved derivation like this. Say S produces B, then B, then B, and finally you will get a terminal string like this. So what I would like to say here, that a language, same language can be represented by different grammars. Okay, so example is G1 and G2. Now when you talk about G1, all the strings, only 3 strings are possible, either epsilon or A or B will be having unique derivations. All the strings will be having unique leftmost derivation, all the strings will be having unique rightmost derivation, and all the strings will be having unique derivation tree. However, as far as grammar G2 is concerned, you can see that A can have multiple derivations. Similarly, the string W can have multiple derivations. Now, both of them are different derivation trees. This derivation tree will be different and this derivation tree will be different. Similarly, these two are two different structures, two different derivation trees, and therefore what we can say, that the grammar G1 is ambiguous or unambiguous. All the strings belonging to the language are having unique derivations, unique LMD, unique RMD, and unique derivation tree, unique structure. That's why G1 will be called as unambiguous grammar. Okay. However, G2 is an ambiguous grammar. G2 cannot be called as unambiguous grammar. So I will mention it here. G2 is an ambiguous grammar. So now let's go a step ahead. What we will say, a language can be represented by multiple grammars. Some of the grammars may be ambiguous, some of the grammars may be unambiguous. And therefore, what we will say, if a language can be represented by an unambiguous grammar, then that particular language will be called as unambiguous language. So here we are defining what do we mean by unambiguous language. So the simplest definition of unambiguous language will be a language for which unambiguous grammar is possible will be called as unambiguous language. We are not interested in whether ambiguous grammars are possible or not. As far as unambiguous languages are concerned, the minimum requirement, the sufficient condition to define unambiguous languages will be the existence of unambiguous grammar. So, a language for which unambiguous grammar is possible will be called as unambiguous language. A language for which at least one unambiguous grammar exists will be called as an unambiguous language. Let's see certain more examples where a language can be represented by both types of grammar. Okay, this was a very simple example. The language was finite. Now we will see an example of infinite language being represented by ambiguous as well as unambiguous grammar. So that example, we will be taking the language a to the power m, b to the power n, and m greater than n. So let's consider the language L equal to a to the power m, b to the power n, then m comma n greater than equal to 0 and m greater than n. Okay. So the number of a should be more than the number of b. Let's see the grammar here. The grammar can be S produces A, S, B, or we want to generate additional number of A's, or A, capital A, and capital A can generate A, capital A, or epsilon. Okay. Or what we can say, S can produce A cap. Okay, let's stick to this particular grammar. S produces A as B, or S produces A capital A produces A capital A, or epsilon. This is grammar say G1 with these two productions, and let's consider another grammar with the productions S produces A S B, or A capital A, or small a, just small a, and then A produces A capital A, or A, or epsilon. Okay. Now, if you look at these two grammars, G1 and G2, both the grammars represent the same language. For example, here you can directly apply S produces A capital A, and this A will be replaced by epsilon. You can generate single A, or you can generate equal number of A and B with the help of this production, and whenever you switch to A, this production additional number of A's will be generated. Therefore, m comma n greater than equal to 0 and m greater than n, this condition will be automatically satisfied. Actually, first condition is not a condition. You cannot have negative number of m and n. So only condition here will be m greater than n. So let's convince ourselves that this is an infinite language, two grammars G1 and G2. Now let's see grammar G2. And in grammar G2, we will try to derive a simple string, for example, A square B, and the derivations may go like this. First of all, we will apply S produces A, S, B, then we will apply A, we will replace this S with A, capital A, and then B, and finally we will replace this capital A with epsilon to get A, B. Okay. So here we expanded this S with A, and then we expanded this A with epsilon. That is one derivation which is possible for A square B, and another derivation which is possible for A square B will be like this. S produces A as B, then we will say this S produces, okay. Now instead of replacing this A S with A capital A and then replacing the A with epsilon, we will directly replace this S with small a, and here we will write down A, B, again we get the same string A square B, okay. So we derived S using G1, here also we derived the same string using G1, sorry not G1, second G2. And now let's try to derive the same string A square B using the first grammar. So as far as this first grammar is concerned, we will derive A square B, it will be S produces, initially we need to apply A as B, so it will be A S B. Now if we apply A as B once again, you will get two number of B's, we don't want it. So I need to come out of this S production and we need to apply this production. So here we will apply A, then small a, capital A, B, and now you need to apply an A production because that is the only variable which is left. Now while applying A production, if you apply this one A, then you will get third A, we don't want third A, and that's why you will be replacing this A with epsilon, and then we will get A and B, and this is the derivation that we achieved using the grammar G1. So what we can say, that the given language is an infinite language. It can be represented with the help of G1, it can be represented with the help of G1, G2. G1, G2 represent the same language L. However, if you observe, for one string you get two different derivations in G2, and please make sure that these are two different derivations. Here you need three productions, here you need just two productions. Different LMD, different RMD and different derivation trees. That's why G2 will be called as an ambiguous grammar and G1 will be called as an unambiguous grammar. So as far as G2 is concerned, it is ambiguous and G1 is unambiguous. And again we can see that a given language can be represented with multiple grammars. Some of the grammar may be unambiguous, some of the grammar may be ambiguous. However, this language can have unambiguous grammar. Unambiguous grammar is possible for this language, and that is why this language is an unambiguous language. Okay. So ambiguous grammar is possible, therefore the language is ambiguous. It is wrong. Wrong argument. Just because one ambiguous grammar is possible, you cannot say that the language is ambiguous. Okay, ambiguous language definition is different. However, just because one unambiguous grammar is possible, just because at least one ambiguous grammar is possible, just because ambiguous grammar exists, we can say that L is an unambiguous language. And now let us see a third example. Of a language where unambiguous grammars are not possible, and an example will be L equal to A to the power m, B to the power n, C to the power n, union A to the power m, B to the power n, C to the power n, or we can write it down here as A to the power p, B to the power q and C to the power q. What does that mean? You want either equal number of A's and B's or you want equal number of B's and C's. So what we will do, first of all, we will write down a grammar for this particular language and we will break this language into two parts. We will call this language as L1, we will call this language as L2. Let's write down a grammar for L1. It will be like S produces A, S1, B, or sorry, it can be like AS produces S1, C, then S1 produces A, S1, B, or epsilon. So you can generate equal number of A's and B's on both the sides. And similarly, as far as C is concerned, you can say C produces small c, capital C, or epsilon. So initially you will replace this S with S1C. Now what S1 will do, it will generate equal number of A's and B's because we are having A and B on both the sides, or you can terminate with the help of epsilon. And what the C will do, it will generate 0 or more number of C's. Okay, so this is the grammar for L1. Similarly, you can have a grammar for L2. Say S produces, okay, what we will do? We will call this symbol as S1. Okay. We will use here X, X, X. Okay. And here we will use the start symbol S2. It produces Y, A, Y, okay, because we want any number of A and equal number of B and C. Then A produces small a, capital A or epsilon, okay, and we want to generate equal number of B and C. That can be done with the help of Y. So we can write down Y produces B, Y, C or epsilon. Okay, so what we have done, we broke the language L into union of two languages L1 and L2. We have written a grammar for L1, we have written a grammar for L2. However, we don't want grammar for L1, L2, we are interested in the grammar for L. And grammar for L can be simply written as by adding an additional production of the format. I will write it down here. The format can be S produces S1 or S2. Now see, you want equal number of AB or equal number of BC. Now whenever you want equal number of AB, you will be replacing S with S1, and then onwards you are going to get equal number of AB, any number of C. And whenever you want equal number of BC, you will be applying S produces S2, and there onwards whatever string is generated, it will have equal number of B and C. Now what is the problem with this language? The problem is, okay, let us see, if you want to generate say A square, A square, B square and C cube, how it can be generated? A square, B square, C cube. Now we have got equal number of AB, so it will be generated with the help of S produces S1. And if you want to generate say A square, B cube and C cube, we want equal number of BC, and therefore it will be generated with the help of S produces S2. Let me write down a simple derivation for A square, B square, C cube. The derivation will be looking like, initially we will write down S produces S1, okay, then S1 produces X capital C, okay, then we want A square, B square, so we will replace it with A X B C, then A X B B C, then A, this X we will replace with epsilon, so this will become B B C, and we can iterate C with the help of this symbol, it is capital C, okay, so we can write down A B B small c, capital C, again A B B C C, capital C, and finally A B B, again we need to go for C C, capital C, and then it is A B B C C and C, okay. Likewise, whenever you get equal number of B and C, it can be generated with the help of S2. However, if I give you a string like this, A square, B square, C square, it can be generated with the help of S1 because it has equal number of AB, or it can be generated with the help of S2 because it has equal number of B and C. So, whenever you try to derive this string, you can either go for S produces S1 or you can go for S produces S2. And S produces S1, S produces S2 are two different derivations, are two different LMDs, are two different RMDs. Because if you draw the derivation tree for this S produces S1, it will be like S will be replaced with S1, and if you draw the derivation tree here, it will be this S will be replaced with S2. Now these two derivation trees cannot be same, and therefore what we will say that the grammar that we have written for this language is ambiguous. Okay, the grammar is ambiguous, proof is very clear. Whenever you have equal number of A, B and C, it can be generated either from S1 or from S2. Two different derivations will be possible, therefore the grammar is ambiguous. And now if you observe the language, this ambiguity whether to go from S1 or whether to go from S2 is present in the language itself, because the language only says either you should have equal number of AB or you should have equal number of BC. Now in the grammar there will be a separate logic for equal number of AB and there will be a separate logic for equal number of BC, and whenever you have equal number of A and B and C, either you can use the logic for equal number of AB or you can use the logic for equal number of BC, and therefore what we can conclude here, whatever grammar you draw for this language L, that grammar will always be ambiguous. So what I will say, that for this language L, unambiguous grammars are not possible. Unambiguous grammars are not possible. Whatever grammar you draw, all the grammars will be ambiguous, and therefore this language will be called as an ambiguous language. So the definition of ambiguous language will be a language for which unambiguous grammar is not possible is called as ambiguous language. Ambiguous languages are also called as inherently ambiguous languages. Similarly, a language for which all possible grammars are ambiguous will be called as ambiguous language or inherently ambiguous language. Okay. So unambiguous languages are characterized by existence of unambiguous grammar. Okay. So whenever unambiguous grammar is possible, the language will be unambiguous, and ambiguous languages are characterized by non-existence of unambiguous grammar. So let's write down certain simple definitions for ambiguous as well as unambiguous languages. Okay. Now for ambiguous language, the definition will be all grammars are ambiguous. Okay, all grammars are ambiguous, therefore the language will be called as ambiguous language. Or what you can write, no unambiguous grammar is possible, therefore the language will be called as ambiguous language. And unambiguous language means at least one unambiguous grammar is possible. Or you can simply say at least one is possible means existence. So you can say unambiguous grammar exists. Okay, when it comes to existence or non-existence. And for ambiguous language, you can add one more clause, that unambiguous grammar does not exist. Okay, so let's be very clear with this. Unambiguous grammar does not exist. Unambiguous grammar is not possible. All grammars are ambiguous. Then only language will be called as ambiguous language. And ambiguous grammar exists. At least one ambiguous grammar is possible. Then that particular language will be called as unambiguous language. Ambiguous languages are also called as inherently ambiguous languages. Okay, so grammar again can be either ambiguous or unambiguous. Okay, or what we can say, see one more angle we can have after you are clear with this definition. We will draw a diagram like this. Ambiguous language, okay, and say unambiguous language. Now ambiguous language can have two possibilities: ambiguous grammar and unambiguous grammar. Okay. Similarly, unambiguous language can be represented by ambiguous grammar, or it can be represented by unambiguous grammar. Now, as far as unambiguous languages are concerned, this side unambiguous grammar will go to always exist. Or you can write down always possible. Okay, ambiguous grammar may exist or may not exist. May, so I will write it down here. May or may not be possible. But as far as ambiguous languages are concerned, ambiguous grammars are always possible and unambiguous grammars are never possible, or you can say unambiguous grammar don't exist. Okay, now let me see one thing here, whether unambiguous language, every unambiguous language can have ambiguous grammar or not, that needs to be seen. And what we can say, okay, every ambiguous language can have ambiguous grammar. You can always come up with ambiguous grammar with for any language. So this is the case. And what is the important point that you need to remember? As far as unambiguous languages are concerned, unambiguous grammar will always exist, and as far as ambiguous languages are concerned, unambiguous grammars will never exist. So this is the definition of ambiguous language and this is the definition of unambiguous language. Thank you.